Corporate offices. No matter how high paying the job, behind it lies the same desk with the same sort of presentations, same bland coffee, same windowless conference room, and the same stress as well. It can get quite suffocating.
But if the pandemic has taught us anything, it is that you can work from anywhere. So if you're a CEO that's looking to shift your office, I have a proposition for you that's going to cost you 77.5 lakh rupees. The upside is the view is fantastic. Well, say hello everyone to the 2022 Jeep Grand Cherokee, Jeep's big boy to take on the Europeans. And big boy it is, because even though on the outside it looks like an amalgamation of the Compass and the Meridian, in the flesh it is significantly different, because in true American fashion it is supersized with length of almost 5 meters. It's almost 2 meter wide as well, and it sits tall on the 20-inch wheels as well. So you have a very nice amount of proportion and a very strong road presence. But just speaking on the design, it is very simple, very characterful, and very traditional in that Jeep sense, because there's no nonsense here. There aren't many flowing lines or cuts. It's very simple and basic. Clean 7-slat grille up front with the sleek LED headlamps. You've got the chunky alloy wheels, again simple looking, but in flesh they do look really nice and powerful. Of course, you also have the overall silhouette, which is a traditional Jeep thing. You have that boxy layout that is really familiar and extremely recognizable. And towards the end, things taper down where you have the sleek LED tail lamps, and that's pretty much it. Little bit of badging here and there, but the whole idea is to be a Jeep, and that I think is done really well. Yes, it doesn't have the cutting edge look of an Audi, or it doesn't have the curves of a Mercedes, but again, in true rugged sense, it feels very butch and off-roady, and I think that with the Jeep brand associates very well. And the other thing people were concerned about at the time of launch was the engine. A 2-liter turbo petrol engine to power such a big SUV, 272 horsepower. Is it enough? Well, now the most simple, brutally honest answer is yes, it is enough. Because to be really honest, if they hadn't told you it's a 2-liter, you probably wouldn't have guessed, because there are no signs of an underpowered car. It is a turbo petrol engine. It's a twin scroll turbo that is mounted directly on the head. But that said, there is a little bit of hesitance before this gets going. That bottom end isn't the most responsive. There is a slight pause before the car moves, but once it gets going, it has a very strong and punchy mid-range. The 400 Nm of torque is really well spread through this, so you can absolutely gain some terrific speed. Yes, the chimes will keep going, and that's the thing, it masks the speed really well.
So well, in fact, that you rarely notice the car gaining speed until the warning chimes come in, and that tells you that the engine is refined too.
And refinement is another aspect that I'd like to touch on, because in normal driving, there are very little vibration. In fact, there are no vibrations on the steering in the car. It's only a slight thrum that you hear, that too past the 2500 to 3000 RPM mark. Yes, if you do end up pushing the engine all the way up to the red line, it does get coarse and it's not a nice sound. But in that mid-range, you have a nice raspy exhaust, and often you can hear the turbo wheezing away as well.
Also helping out with performance are the electric compressor and electric power steering that have taken a fair bit of load off the engine.
And yes, overall it does work. But the question is, would it have been better with a diesel engine? Now, it would have had the torque for sure, the extra bit of torque that you would have gotten. Not that it needs it, but it also would have messed up the overall NVH levels, because you just can't match the petrol engine's refinement. And the other thing of a traditional big diesel engine is they are boomy, they are loud, and like I said, it just doesn't sit well with the overall offering of this car, which is a luxury off-roader. And luxury means you want a nice, quiet experience, you want comfort, you want a relaxed nature, and that this car definitely has. What also complements the engine overall is the 8-speed automatic gearbox. It is a torque converter, traditional torque converter by ZF, and again, it works very well hand in hand. Yes, there is a bit of a delay initially, like I said, but the gears are really closely stacked, so it jumps to the higher gear really fast, and I think that's the best way to enjoy it. That means the engine is under less stress, the RPMs drop down, and you can just absolutely cruise with this. Of course, you also have paddle shifters to tug along, and yes, it does make the whole experience a bit more engaging. But in a car in this segment, it's not like you're going to use them a lot.
What you will use is the sport mode that betters the engine and gearbox response and negates a bit of the weak low-end performance. But overall, the engine feels adequate and anything but ill-suited to the Grand Cherokee. The other big plus on the Jeep is the ride.
But of course, the highlight on this car is the suspension. Now it gets steel springs. Abroad you can have it with air suspension, but if you ask me honestly, it's good riddance you don't get that, because it's again one less thing to think about, damaging the bags. There are a whole lot of sensors that can go wrong. With this, you have a nice traditional setup. It is softly sprung, which means bad roads are not a problem at all. This thing absolutely glides over. The ride quality is just superb on this car, especially low speed ride. But since it is softly sprung, in the corners it does dive and pitch a fair bit. There is a good amount of body roll as well, and it does make its weight felt.
What also aids the driving experience is the Level 2 ADAS with adaptive cruise control, blind spot monitoring and lane keep assist, among others, that work best only on the absolutely well-marked and clear roads.
But of course, what is a Jeep when you have to drive it on the tarmac? Now this is where the Grand Cherokee truly comes into its own. When the going gets tough, when the roads end, when the tarmac is left far behind, this is absolutely Grand Cherokee territory. Now it isn't as hardcore as some of the other trail rated versions, but even this is very, very good, and compared to the rivals, it is miles ahead in terms of off-road capability. If you want to take the long way home, if you don't want to worry about where this road leads, and if you can barely see stuff in a cloud of dust, don't worry, because the Grand Cherokee can very much take care of you in this situation. Now, the one big advantage it has is plenty of ground clearance. Even though you don't have the air suspension that gives you the added lift function that raises the car even higher, this height is more than sufficient. You can do some pretty heavy duty stuff with this, and like I said, that air of indestructibility and go anywhere capability, that is just something you cannot get with the European luxury SUVs. Even though they have off-road modes, it doesn't feel as tough as the Grand Cherokee does. Of course, you can switch between the terrain modes here, between auto, snow, sand or mud. Rock is for the trail rated versions only. Sadly, we don't get that here, but that's alright, because even as is, it is just such a good amount of control that this car has. Like I said, the tires are not off-road tires, they are highway tires, but the wide section means you have plenty of grip. The torque that is so well spread out means you have power and you have traction pretty much on every gear. And climbing uphill, even on a road that is non-existent, is not a problem at all. The other big advantage the Grand Cherokee has is that 360-degree camera. It has a front camera as well, and that means in tricky situations you can engage it and it is very, very clear. And adding to that, you also have the off-road pages that give you your diff situation, that gives you the temperature for the engine, oil temperature, gearbox temperature. So yes, it is pretty capable. It's not all gimmicks. This thing can actually do the tough stuff.
However, when you are paying this kind of money, the feel-good factor and a well-packaged cabin is quite important too.
Now inside the Grand Cherokee, things are rather different compared to your usual luxury SUV. If you expect the grandeur that you have in a Mercedes, if you expect the cutting edge nature you get in Audis, well, this cabin is going to be quite different, because true to its character, it is very, very off-road friendly. In that sense, the dark upholstery is really easy to maintain. You have a good amount of leather on offer as well, a lot of piano black, a lot of brushed aluminum. This wood insert is also finished in a dark shade, which means the sense is that you don't have to worry about it a lot, and that's the overall idea with the Grand Cherokee. You don't have to worry at all. Take it anywhere you want. But that said, they haven't skimmed out on the feature list, because this thing is absolutely packed. You get a slick touchscreen, you get a fully digital cluster as well, you get wireless charging, plenty of ports on offer, 2 Type A ports, there are 2 Type C ports, you have wireless charging, and of course then there are the actual physical switches in this day and age, a car that gives you physical switches are absolutely superb in my book, because they are just so easy to use, intuitive, all the knobs are where you'd want them. And like I said, the feature list continues on. Ventilated seats for both front seats. You have heated function for that as well, for when you go up north. Yeah, these things might not seem regular for everyday use, but trust me, when you do go up north and the temperatures are sub-zero, these things come in handy.
The feature list is extensive with a 9-speaker Alpine system, a 360-degree camera, and of course ADAS as well.
But when you talk about luxury, you also talk about the nuances, and the nuance with this car is that the passenger has his own screen. Now sadly, the version abroad is a lot more advanced, where you already have Amazon Fire TV embedded into it. On this, you have an HDMI port through which you can connect your either pen drive, your laptop, your hard drive. But of course, the one issue is that there is no output for audio, which means audio is gonna have to come through either Bluetooth speakers, Bluetooth earphones, or an aux cable.
Also, while the screen does allow the passenger to choose media and help out with navigation, the resolution isn't the best as it yearns for more brightness. So if you plan on binge watching content here, it won't be the most satisfying experience.
But a lot of the prospective buyers will be interested in this seat. It is an SUV north of 75 lakh rupees. So yes, there is a big chauffeur-driven clientele as well. And as you can see, space is not an issue. The driver's seat is set in my driving position. I'm over 6 feet. And as you can see, you have enough legroom, there's enough headroom as well, and the cabin is nice and wide too. The thing is, the seat comfort is a bit awkward because of the squabs that aren't too large, which means under thigh support does suffer a bit. And of course, the other bit is that getting inside this car is a bit of a stretch, which means you do have to climb. The floor is nice and high and the seat is low, and that also means you sit slightly knees up. Now, under thigh support for me is never really good on any car because of the long legs, but even by normal standards, it still is a bit less. However, the seat comfort is very, very good. The cushioning, the support is really nice. They're nice and broad as well, so it is a very comfortable experience. But if you want to enhance that, you can obviously recline the backrest. Oh, and this is so much better now. It is a lot more relaxing. Of course, you have your sun blinds as well that block out the sun. It's very, very convenient on hot days. And like I said, you have a plethora of ports, 2 USB Type-C ports, 2 USB Type-A ports, and you also have a 3-pin socket as well. And that is going to come quite in handy when you decide to work from anywhere. Of course, you have AC vents at the back as well and heated seats. Now yes, you can complain there should have been ventilated seats at the back as well, because they are a bit more useful in India. But like I said, when you do go up north, these things do help a fair bit. The other bit is the middle passenger. Well, it's usually the unfortunate place, but if you are seated in here, it's not going to be too much of a problem. Yes, your legs will be a bit apart, but that's pretty much it. The tunnel is not too large. It's relatively flat, so that's not a problem. There's enough space here as well. And usually the problem with middle row seats is that they compromise on headroom, but not here though, because as you can see, I've got enough headroom, so that's not going to be a problem. Of course, this is the seat to be. Just recline the backrest, put down the armrest, and now you have a perfect place. So really, really relaxing. Space, not a problem. You have some space under the front seats as well for your feet. You have a bit of a netting here to keep knickknacks and loose stuff. Yes, it does not have the grandeur and the style of the Mercedes-Benz. It does not have the futuristic cutting-edge theme of the Audi. But on its own, you know, for what it is, true to its character, it definitely has a lot going for it.
So it does have all the necessary bits for a luxury off-roader, and thanks to a big 1076 litre boot, you can take your desk pretty much anywhere you want. And since it is now assembled in India, it costs 77.5 lakh rupees ex-showroom, and that means it seriously undercuts its European rivals. It might not be as flashy, fun to drive, or as sophisticated, but it has an appeal that none of those SUVs have. It can actually take you places that are unexplored and connect with the adventurist in you, and it is there specifically for a specific set of audience that wants to go out and explore. If you need a tough go anywhere SUV with plenty of kit and will actually use it for what it's meant to do, the Grand Cherokee is unrivaled.